Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Awaken to Your Soul Path. I am your host, Barbara, and today I'm joined by the beautiful Kim Thalken, and we are going to be talking about you're not crazy, you're just spiritually awakening. And I absolutely adore this topic because that was my reality. And I didn't know what was happening. And I honestly thought I was losing my mind, that I was going crazy. And I didn't know what was left and right and up and down. And I thought that there was something going on with me that I needed to fix, instead of just knowing that it's a natural part of evolving, of growing, of stepping into your spiritual journey more and more. And I think, especially with the energies of late and the shifts and the changes that are already happening and that we are moving towards, more and more people are spiritually awakening with
Mhm.
everything that comes with it. So I'm very happy, Kim, that you are here today to talk to me about this.
Oh, thank you, Barbara. I am too, because like you said, when you go through that experience, it's very helpful to know that it's a normal part of the process, and that it's so normal that it actually normalizes over time into your life, and it becomes the new norm. And so it's just a temporary experience, but it does seem to be a common part of the experience for so many.
Right? So maybe it's a good idea to start our talk off by talking a bit about what does that going crazy feeling feel like? What could be happening in your life? Maybe you could share your story. I could maybe talk a little bit about mine so that people know how to identify the things that are going on when someone is spiritual awakening. How do you distinguish between actually losing your mind or spiritually?
Yes, that's a good question. And I some people what I have found is that some people, when they spiritually awaken, there's some kind of activation that happens in their life to trigger that awakening.
Mhm.
Could be the loss of a loved one, the loss of a relationship, something that's a major part of their life that is maybe no longer, and that can trigger the awakening. But some people just have a spontaneous awakening too. It's like the soul says it's time to wake up, and then changes start to happen. But for me anyways, the trigger point for me was I started spending a lot of time in meditation, and that was the activation
Mhm.
for me. Um one day, all of a sudden, my channels, internal channels, started to open up, and I started to hear my guidance and hear messages from loved ones that had passed. And so that was what happened for me in on my journey. But what makes you, I think, feel this sense of, oh my gosh, what's happening to me, is that your kundalini energy is activated. So that is your soul's light, your soul's energy that rests at the base of the spine, all of a sudden is ignited, and it starts to move through your body. And it's a new energy. It's a very high vibrational energy. And so that can make you feel really off kilter because you're not used to what that energy feels like. So for me, Barbara, it put me on this, like, high, almost like I felt like had 50 pots of coffee. And I'm starting to hear these messages in my head all at the same time, which which can be very jolting and make you feel like, what is going on? Am I losing my mind? What's happening? I don't feel like I've got control of how I feel in my body. I'm starting to hear all these messages. And it's like all of a sudden the blinders come off. So, like, where we used to live our life with the blinders and we could only see what was between the blinders, then those blinders come off and you have a full view that wasn't there before. And so you start to, see life differently, understand life. For me, when those blinders came off, I started, well, I was hearing my guidance and they were talking to me and sharing things with me. And I started to understand like life from a different place, understand some of the challenges that people in my life were having and why they were having it, what was going on at a deeper level with those around me. Um, so all of that at once can definitely make you feel like, wow, I'm kind of losing my mind. It's like everything in the outside world kind of looks the same, right? But it's what's going on in your inside world that starts to change, and to make sense of that, is a process that goes into making sense of that.
Yes. And I'm very happy that you're talking about this because there are indeed different types of spiritual awakening that come with
Mhm.
different catalysts, different things that trigger it, or
Yeah.
sometimes not really a discernible trigger at all. I
Mhm.
always thought that you had one spiritual awakening, but that is not true. For me, the first one, it was triggered by a huge catalyst. And I see that for the people who know a little bit about human design or the gene keys, with people who have a sixth line profile, they tend to have something really big happen around their 30s. For me, it was ending up in a big burnout, losing the love of my life, losing my home, losing my family, and losing my job. So all
Mhm.
these things
Mm.
together, it was a lot. And then all of a sudden, I was sort of catapulted in grief, misery,
Yes. Yes.
depression, burnout, lack of energy, sleeping, mood swings, all of these things were happening. And because so many other things are also happening at the same time, it's very difficult to distinguish um, what is going on, and if it's really just things stacking on top of each other, or is there something else going on. And it was only in hindsight that I recognized it as my first spiritual awakening. In that
Mhm.
moment, I was so devastated by everything and so burned out that I felt like a victim that was lost at sea,
Of
barely hanging
course.
on to the life raft. So it was a big event, a big catalytic event, and that started me on my journey of self-discovery. That was the start
Mhm.
of getting to know myself better, starting to get to know who I really am, starting to become a bit more familiar with spirituality, spiritual things. And so that was the first catalyst that had to happen because I came from a background where we didn't believe in the hoo-hoo and the woo-woo and the spiritual and those things. I wasn't raised by it, and people thought, oh, this is just hocus pocus. Or when I started doing Reiki, they told me, oh, that's the work of the devil. You be careful, right?
Mhm.
So I think it also sort of depends on where you are at in your life, what different profile you have. So that was my first one. And then the second one, and the third one, and the fourth one were more like
Mm.
you were sort of describing, where all of a sudden it feels like everything that was familiar or everything that I liked before sort of lost its light, where I felt like I was an energizer bunny. We had this advertisement where you saw a bunny with batteries in it and it can
Oh,
go
yes.
forever.
Right.
Let's
Right.
call it the Duracell bunny.
Mhm.
Batteries. So it felt like that, where I was energized and where the things that used to matter no longer started to matter, where I was also losing people in my life that I just couldn't connect with anymore,
Yeah.
where your spiritual beliefs start shifting to
Mm.
various degrees. And all of them were different, but the last one was really a true activation of the Kundalini energy, where for the first time I really felt it running. So I think
Yeah.
it can have different ways of looking and feeling, but what stood out in all of them was that I sort of lost touch with who I was before it started happening.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have no idea what is happening, where it's going towards, what you need to
Mm-hmm.
do or not do. You don't understand it.
Yes.
Very confusing. It can be quite a lot at the same time. Can also be very
Yes.
painful. Um,
Yes.
I've seen that every time you spiritual awaken, your shadow patterns get triggered again. All things that you feel like you've already let go of before, it's very easy to get triggered in that again.
Mm. Mm. Yes, you raise so many good points, Barbara. And what I find is, every soul has its unique journey, and what is needed to experience in each one of our own, spiritual awakening and how it's going to happen. And so how it's unique for each one of us is, based on in my view, is based on what the soul needs, what's important for you, what's important for me. And so it's very divine in that way. I think there's perfection in that.
Yes.
But uh but yes, like, listening to you talk, I'm sorry that you had to go through that, because I can only imagine how difficult that was. And it sounded like, boy, your world just came crumbling down, every aspect of it. And what I have found in my own awakening and listening to your experience is that that's very purposeful. I think we have to remember everything is very purposeful and it holds meaning. And a part of our awakening is coming to learn what that meaning is, what that purpose was for you, for me, for all of us. But what I find happens is that, when we have a lot of things like that happen at once, or it just could be one major thing that's very devastating to us, is that it assists us in letting go. It assists us in,
Mhm.
yeah, in surrendering, because
Yes.
our human self is so strong. Our ego is so strong in the beginning that it hangs on to what it is that we know, what it is that is familiar, what it is that we feel comfortable with.
Mhm.
And this kind of change, what we're talking about, is very, very uncomfortable for the human side of us. So when the soul steps in, it has to do something that is going to be so maybe difficult, or such a drastic change that we can't even hold on because we don't even know what's happening. We're kind of in a state of, perhaps I would say, shock. And in that shock, we are forced to surrender and to let go. And then that's when the beauty can start to happen. And like, I don't want to scare anybody or put fear in anyone, because this is by far the most beautiful thing that could ever happen for you, for me, for all of us. But anytime there is change, we can't sugarcoat it. There's going to be some difficulties and challenges. But what I will say is that the more the soul starts to come online, which is what this process is about,
Mhm.
the more beauty starts to show up in your life, the more it is you live a more purposeful and meaningful life. It just brings in so much more purpose and meaning. And
Yes.
truthfully, I believe what it is you will experience. It's what I've experienced, and I believe this is what this path offers. Is that when you look back, you go, "Wow, you know what? I wouldn't do it any other way." Because there was absolute magnificence and perfection in how it happened and
Mhm.
why it happened. And we see that it happened for us, not to us. But it's a
Yeah.
process, right? It is a process like anything else.
Yes, and I agree with you. I think everybody has their own purpose in life. The soul's mission is also what you can call it. And
Hmm.
according to what is written for you or what your purpose is, you have a certain path, a certain journey that you need to undertake. And your soul
Hmm.
is a big part in that. And depending on that path and what's in store for you, what your highest purpose is, your highest thing of achieving here, coming to do here combined
Hmm.
with where you come from, this can cause this catalytic event that triggers the start of something. And for those of you that are watching and listening, I've had four, but the first one was by far the worst. And in that moment, I felt indeed like I lost everything. And in that moment, I thought it was the worst thing to have ever happened to me. And I kept asking why, and I didn't understand it. And I cried a lot, and it was really horrible. So if you are in a situation like that, send me a message, leave a comment. I'd love to support you. But you are absolutely right in saying that it serves a purpose. And it took a while for me to look back on the things that happened and to realize that they needed to happen in order
Hmm.
to get me to where I needed to be. I can now also look back and say that the relationship I was in was not for my highest purpose. And
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
job I was having was not in my highest purpose. And I
Yes.
was living a life that was not me. I was living a very inauthentic life because I thought that I needed to be that person in order to find what everybody says you should have, happiness, a family, a good job, security, all of those things. And I now know that that way is not my way.
Yes. Right. Yeah, what I find happens, Barbara, what this process is really about is it's really like a purification
Yes.
process. It purifies your life across the board, and it shows you everywhere in your life, every reality in your life, every relationship, the job where you're living, um, all of those things that are not aligned with your highest potential.
Yes.
And when you think about it, well, I don't think I know anybody who doesn't want to live their highest potential, right? Because the highest potential means you're living a life that's like feels good. Um, you're living with greater ease. There's a lot more joy and inspiration, creativity that comes with that. You're living in an expanded state. That all sounds wonderful. But in the beginning, we're living these realities that hold a lot of density,
Yes.
that realities that equal, for the most part, a lot of lessons. So you're learning through struggle, you're learning through difficulty, you're learning through challenge,
Yes.
instead of learning through growth, through inspiration, those kinds of things, learning through, yeah, joy, grow through joy, grow through inspiration. It's different, right? It's different.
Yes.
But in order to get to that place, we have to clear out like the denser realities so that we can then align with the higher ones that are going to offer us that are
Yes.
going to offer us that. But I know that for most people, and I'm one of them, one of the most difficult parts of that was the relationships that kind of fall away either
Yes.
abruptly, or there's, over time it just kind of fades out, or you just find it, you're not really resonating with the same people or the same set of activities anymore. It's all really part of it. And that's because the new or higher you is coming online. So like Barbara said, if you are going through that experience, then just know that that's serving a purpose. It isn't forever, and it's elevating you to a higher place. So just remember that,
Yes.
remember
Be a
that.
time in your future where you're actually glad that this is happening. I know it doesn't feel like that. It might seem inconceivable at this point
Yeah.
in are, but I promise you that that moment will happen. But in that moment, especially the first one, it sort of feels like the death of your old self. And it's mostly the death of what I call the rules, the bullshit rules of life, the way you are supposed to be living, the way you're supposed to be acting, the way your life is supposed to be looking like. All of these things fall away because in the end, you need to find your definition of things. You need to find what your definition of yourself is, what your definition of a happy life is, what your definition of a purposeful life is. All of these things you need to discover for yourself. And to discover that, you need to let go of old paradigms, old beliefs, old programming that no longer serves you. And that can be painful, especially the first one. I can also tell that the latter ones that happened later, they were not as painful, by far not as painful as the first one,
Mm,
because I started understanding what was happening better and better, and I started recognizing the signals quicker and quicker, to the
mm,
point where you feel this discord. This sometimes I think you need to have this contrast where you're really discontented or angry or unhappy or stressed or something major that breaks you free from it, because otherwise there's not enough motivation to shift into the newer version of yourself,
of course, yes.
right?
Yeah, we'll always choose the familiar and what's comfortable. So, yeah, when the soul, comes online, you are going, it will be the catalyst that moves you into something that's new, but something that is better. And I love how you said, you had four different awakenings. Whoa, wow, okay. I remember thinking, after the first awakening, wow, okay, I have arrived. What else could there possibly be, right?
Yeah,
What else could there I never even thought it was conceivable to have another awakening. And
yeah,
like you, I had my second awakening, much different experience. Uh I would say the second one was more difficult than the first, for me. But an important point I feel like needs to be made is that, you know, um, you start to live from your soul. That's your highest self. So the more you start to live from your highest self, the more you're going to navigate your way through these these experiences with greater ease because you're living from a different place. You are understanding things from a different place. So the choices you're going to make are going to be different. And you become more aware, like you said, Barbara, to do, what it is you need to do to break through some of the uh some of the things it is that are needed, beliefs and stuff. But what I'll also say is that it can feel like your world is turning upside down. But what I
yes,
want to say is it's really turning right side up. And so remember that as you're going through the process, it's actually it's self-correcting.
yes.
It is self-correcting. And so have comfort in that.
Hmm.
You start to live from a different place. You know, um, you start to live from more the truth of who you are. And that's a beautiful thing, to not have to pretend that you're somebody else or that this is what you feel you need to do, ought to do. You really start to step into your own power, which is your soul, which is the magnificence of your soul. Your soul is absolutely empowered. The human side of us, which was the disempowered aspect of us.
Yes, you're absolutely right, and it's a very individual thing. But what I had a point and now I forgot my point. I hate it when that happens. I think it was something like when you were going through it, we tend to want to control it. We
Mhm.
feel like we want to take action. What am I doing wrong? What can I improve? What do I need to do to move through this? What do I need stop needing to do to move through this? Or things like that. That's what I see with a lot of people happening. They feel like there's something they need to do, or they want to
Mhm.
control it because it's not feeling right, and they feel that if they do something, then they're more in control and that they can steer the outcome.
Yes.
The outcome cannot be steered. That's one thing. And the only thing
Yep.
you need to do is to surrender. And that sounds
Mhm.
very easy. I'm aware of that. Just surrender. It sounds very easy. The practicality of it, the actual doing it, is a lot more difficult than the saying of it. Because it means that you really need to let go of everything. You need to let
Mm.
go of the things that you thought were true. You need to let go of the beliefs that you were holding. You need to let go of your desire to know the outcome, your desire to know where we're going, where we're moving towards, and really sort of find happiness in the unknown, contentment in the having no clue. And that is very
Yes.
difficult for most of us.
Yes, but one of the benefits of that is you start to build up a real belief in yourself
Yeah.
because just to backtrack here, it what builds up to that belief is, and what I found in my second awakening was it served a much different purpose than my first. My first was like my spiritual gifts started to come online,
Mhm.
but a realignment of my life as well. But boy, the second awakening was really what put me on the path of ascension. It was a different purpose.
Yeah.
So it really moved me from my head down into my heart, which is what ascension does when you start living from that place. But what happened in my second awakening, things were happening so fast. Like I couldn't even keep up. I couldn't even keep up. This was happening, that was happening. I was being shown where, this aspect of my life wasn't aligned, and then this aspect, and it was moving, moving, moving.
Yeah.
And it was almost like a domino, like collapsing. It was all the old realities just collapsing, and it was happening so fast that I couldn't hold on. I
Mhm.
couldn't keep up. I couldn't control. It was at that point, it was way out of my control. All I could do was to surrender and to let go. I was like, whoa, all right, there's no things just happening too fast. And then when you start to surrender and to let go, that's when you start moving into a place of allowing. So new realities, you're allowing new realities into, whereas you would have held on to the old unconscious ones, the ones that aren't aligned, that ones that offer you a lower experience, so to speak, and the new ones start to come online. And when you move through that process, you start to build up belief in yourself. You start to say, wow, okay, I am the one who's navigating my way through. That's when your higher self comes online, and your higher self starts to guide you, and you start to believe in that connection, know that connection, strengthen that connection, integrate that connection, be that part of you. You
Yes.
start to be it and live it. Then you start to really, like, your confidence levels really start to increase. I remember when I was interviewing in the corporate world at that time, and I was like nailing my interviews because I was speaking from a much more confident place. Like, I just knew who I was in that interview. I was speaking my truth. There was no question. I knew what to say, what was important to say, what I wanted to communicate. And it became very noticeably clear to me, wow, wow, I'm different. I'm different.
I love that you're saying that because when I, before my first spiritual awakening, if I look back at it, I wasn't really loving myself. I wasn't
Mhm.
myself to the best of my abilities, and I didn't feel confident in myself. I didn't have confidence in my abilities. I was just sort of along for the ride. That was basically what
Mhm.
was happening in that period. And if I look at where I am right now, then I love who I am. I love what I do. I love every aspect of myself. I have faith in my abilities. I know exactly what I can and cannot do. And that feels very empowering. It feels like
Yes.
you've stepped into your own power.
Yes. Yes, I love that. And I do wholeheartedly believe that that is a part of the process. Well, of course it is, because the awakening is your soul coming online, and your soul is empowered and your soul is going to guide you to make empowered choices.
Yes.
And so then you start to you'll see the difference in the choices it is you make. And a fun thing, well, sometimes not fun in the moment, but looking back at it, it's like what I notice is that when you make a choice that comes from the old you, your higher self will step in, and there will be some kind of like your inner compass, that dial will move, and you'll go, oh, you know, um, that's not the choice I should have made. I should be making right now. That's not the highest choice. So it's like you'll have those checks and balances in place now, so that you start to make the higher choices. There's that awareness there, which is a part of the self discovery that you're talking about, Barbara.
Yes.
And it's amazing when that happens. Like, I will know as I'm talking is, oh, wait a second. Nope, that's not the correct answer or the right choice.
Yeah, so you can call it your intuition or your gut
Yeah.
feeling, yeah, or your inner knowing. There are many different words for it, but that's the
Yes.
thing that starts strengthening, where you intuitively feel, ooh, or with choices or with things where before it was more a rational, a mental process. I think where
Yes.
you had the pros and cons lists or
Mhm.
things like that to come to a decision. And when you come more into who you really are and you start trusting in your connection to your higher self, your connection to the source energy,
Yes.
to every living being on the planet, which comes with activating your soul more and more, then you stop second guessing yourself. You start wondering if you are going to make the right decision. You start trusting in
Yes.
inner guidance in this path that is for you, and you worry less.
Yes, there's all kinds of beautiful things that happen when that happens. And that is why that is a foundational part of the work it is I do with the people I work with, because it's so much more empowering, and you really start to, as I said before, live from a higher place. If those who are listening would like to know how to connect to their higher self, their intuition, I do have a free offer. Because for me, it's that important, where I have a free step by step written guide and also a video tutorial that where I walk you through it. So we do it together so that there's no question, and you can learn how to do it for yourself, so that you never have to feel disempowered again. When I think about what life feels like or felt like before I started living from that place, it's disempowered. Disempowering. You're relying on the outside world to tell you what you should or shouldn't do. You can feel like you're navigating this life alone, and we never are.
Mhm.
But when we connect to that part of us, it reaffirms that we're actually fully supported. We will always get the answers it is that we need. And another thing too is I feel like, we might feel lost, unsure for longer periods of time than
Mhm.
we would otherwise.
Yes.
So
Yeah, I
it's
love
an
that.
important part of that. It's an important part of the experience. And when we connect our intuition, that builds our confidence, I believe.
Yes, I wholeheartedly agree with this. Yes. So, if you've been watching and if you've been listening and you've made it this far, then thank you so much for joining us in our entire conversation. I love it. I would also love it if you could maybe share in the comments either your personal story or maybe you have questions or your biggest insight. That would be really awesome so that we can inspire even more people. But I can also imagine that you might want to know, well, where can I find Kim? How can I get that free intuition thing that she was talking about? So, where can people connect with you, Kim, and where can they find your intuition offer?
Yes, yes. So the best place to do that is through my website, which is kimberlythalken.com. It's KIMBERLY, and the last name is THALKEN.com. And my free offer will come up. And I hope you choose to do that so that you can see what it is we're talking about and you get to experience that for yourself too.
Exactly. I love it. If this went too fast for you, no worries. I will make sure that the link that Kim just mentioned is included in the show notes, probably below this video. Could also maybe be to the sides, kind of depends on where you're catching this episode. But I promise you it will be included so it becomes very easy for you to take her up on her offer. I also offer a free clarity call for people who want to explore something, have a question, or would like to start working with me. The links to do that will also be in the description. And well, yeah, then I think we had a really beautiful talk. We hit on some really beautiful points. And I just really, from the bottom of my heart, want to thank you, Kim, for this wonderful conversation that we had today.
Oh, likewise, Barbara. Thank you so much. I've really enjoyed this time, and I really hope that it supports those who are listening.
Yes, that is my goal as well, and I'm pretty sure that it will. So thank you again, and also you watcher, listener, viewer out there, thank you for your support for this channel. If you haven't done so already, maybe subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so that you will never miss another wonderful interview like this again. For right
Mm.
now, I wish you an amazing rest of your day, and I look forward to inspiring you with another beautiful guest in next week's episode. Take care.